Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're exploring something, well, pretty crucial for personal security: how to protect yourself from manipulation. And the key: simply understanding how people around you actually operate. Yeah, our source material, it uses some really powerful frameworks, mostly from psychological models, think authors like Thomas Erikson, and they tackle a big question. Why do we fall for tactics that, seem so obvious later on? So our mission today is like a shortcut to mental self-defense. We're going to pull out two key models, the Johari Window and the DIC model, that really shine a light on communication and behavior patterns, the ones you need to watch out for.
Absolutely. Anticipating patterns is key. And the source material nails it with a quote from John Aston. If you don't control your thinking, someone else will. It's so true, that lack of self-awareness. It creates a kind of vacuum. And yeah, manipulators are quick to step in. You really have to grasp your own psychological setup first before you can analyze or defend against someone else's agenda.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. Before we even get to personality styles, we need to talk about how decisions really get made. Because honestly, this is the starting point for influence. And for exploitation, too. We all like to think we're logical, don't we? But the evidence? Well,
It tells a different story. Maybe the biggest trick our brain plays on us, this idea that facts and logic drive everything important. But the research, which is, central to these sources, it clearly shows that the vast majority of our decisions, they're based on emotional convictions, subjective beliefs, and the numbers are quite startling, actually. You should really keep this figure in mind. Something like 80% of our decisions hinge on those emotional convictions. Only about 20%, just a small fraction, rely on pure logical analysis.
wow, 80-20. That changes everything about how you'd approach influence, doesn't it? If emotion is driving 80% of the choices, you absolutely have to map your own emotional landscape first. Otherwise, you're just, well, an easy target. And the really tough part for resisting manipulation is that people often decide based on that gut feeling, that strong emotion.
And then they build a logical story around it afterwards.
Exactly. You rationalize the feeling.
Spot on. You buy the flashy car because it feels great, and then you spend the drive home calculating fuel efficiency to make it seem logical. A smart manipulator gets this. They aim straight for that 80% using fear, flattery, urgency, whatever works, knowing you'll probably supply the logical reason later.
Okay, so if our emotional side is really running the show most of the time, we need tools. Tools for self-mastery to see our real motivations. Which brings us perfectly to the first big framework, the Johari Window. Classic model, named after Joe Luft and Harry Ingham, who developed it, back in the 50s. It's a fantastic tool for genuine self-knowledge.
Yeah, it's fascinating because the Johari window isn't just about you. It's about cooperation, how communication works better. It maps out self-awareness using 4 quadrants, basically looking at what's known to you versus what's known to others.
Yeah.
The whole point is to make that cooperative space bigger. So if we look at the 4 parts, first you've got the field, or the public self. This is stuff known to both you and others. Your open, shared space. The bigger this is, the smoother things generally go.
Right, the open book part. But
Yeah.
then you get the more difficult zones. Second is the blind spot, or the unnoticed self. This is the stuff unknown to you, but everyone else sees it clear as day. Explains why getting honest feedback is so vital, even when it stings a bit.
And that blind spot, if you ignore it, wow, it becomes a huge vulnerability. Think about some habit you have that drives everyone nuts, but you're totally oblivious. A manipulator doesn't need to convince you it's a flaw. They just exploit it because, well, everyone else already knows.
Ah, okay, that really links it to self-defense. Makes perfect sense. And the third area, the facade, or the secret self, that needs a different kind of strength, right? Courage.
Exactly. The facade holds everything you know about yourself, but deliberately hide from others. Secrets, fears, maybe deep-seated beliefs. The sources really stress that revealing things from this area, moving them into the public self, takes real courage. Disclosure.
And thinking about manipulation, isn't the first goal often to break down that facade? If they can pressure you into revealing something hidden, they gain leverage, don't they? So knowing what you hide is also knowing your potential weak spots.
Absolutely. Knowing your secrets is knowing what they might target. And then the last quadrant, the unknown. This is stuff neither you nor others know, yet untapped potential maybe, or deep reactions you haven't encountered. So the big takeaway for you, the listener, is pretty straightforward. See yourself better by getting feedback, and connect genuinely by having the courage to, drop the mask sometimes and show your real self.
Okay, so Johari helps us map ourselves internally. Got it. But like you said, we didn't start this just for introspection. We need to figure out what's coming at us from others. And that's where the DISC model comes in, right? As a kind of quick guide to understanding different behavioral styles.
That's the perfect transition. Johari reveals the why behind your actions. DISC helps you quickly grasp how others tend to act. And it's built on two main behavioral axes, which are actually quite easy to spot once you know what to look for.
Okay, lay them out for us. What are these axes that define the styles?
So the system first looks at focus. Are they primarily tuned into tasks and problems like the data, the results, the what? Or are they more focused on people and relationships, the connections, the team dynamics, the who?
Yeah.
It's axis 1. Then axis 2 is about their pace or energy. Are they generally characterized by waiting introversion, more cautious, reflective, maybe process-driven? Or by movement openness, more active, expressive, faster-paced?
That sounds pretty straightforward. Focus and pace. And plotting those gives you the four main styles, the color codes people often talk about. But hang on, isn't there a risk here? Reducing complex people to just red, yellow, green, or blue feels a bit simplistic, maybe. How did the sources handle that stereotyping risk?
That's a really important point, and the source material is clear. Nobody's just one color. We're all a mix, definitely. But these models focus on our preferred or default behavior, especially when we're under pressure. Think of it like predicting someone's reaction maybe 70% of the time, not 100%. It's about gaining predictive insight, not sticking people in boxes permanently.
Okay, fair enough. Predictive power, not pigeonholing. Got it. So let's get into the actionable stuff for these styles. Start with the high energy, assertive one, the dominant style, often called red. That's task problem focus, combined with movement openness.
Right. And here's that really specific, usable tip the sources offer for spotting a red type. The simplest method is incredibly direct. Just look them straight in the eye. Most people, naturally break eye contact after a few seconds. The red personality, they'll often hold your gaze quite intensely for a long time.
That focused stare, I think I know what you mean. So if they're basically sizing you up, how does someone who isn't naturally a red counter that effectively without getting into a weird staring match?
Yeah, you definitely don't want a staring contest. You can't win. The key insight is understanding why they're doing it, assessing resistance. So the best counter is to maintain professional eye contact, yes, but respond quickly, succinctly, with results, facts. Red types value speed and efficiency way more than social niceties. If you meet that gaze with a clear, task-focused answer, you signal competence. That's what earns their respect. Don't get lost in feelings or long explanations.
Right, cut to the chase. That makes sense. Okay, that leads nicely into the other high-pace style. Influence, yellow. Focus on people relationships, plus movement openness. How do we spot this one quickly?
The yellow style. Look for the energy, the enthusiasm, the talkativeness. They're the natural networkers, often fast talkers, very expressive, lots of gestures, maybe dramatic language. And here's a quick recognition clue. Notice what they talk about. It's often who they know, where they've been, the excitement, rather than the nitty-gritty details of what they achieved. They thrive on social approval, fun, and being liked.
So if red focuses on getting there, yellow focuses on the fun journey and who's coming along.
Pretty much, yeah. If you're dealing with a yellow type trying to persuade you, remember their emotional 80% is fueled by optimism, connection, excitement. So don't bog them down with spreadsheets. Sell the vision, the positive experience. Mention who else is excited about it.
Okay, 2 down. Let's shift to the slower pace styles, starting with the most cautious one, commitment compliance, blue. That's task problem focus again, but this time with waiting introversion. What's the quick spotting tip here?
The blue personality stands out because of their focus on process, accuracy, and, well, correctness. They tend to avoid emotional appeals. Ask them a question, and they might pause. They won't just jump in until they feel they have all the necessary information. In meetings, they're the ones asking the detailed technical questions, querying the rules, the fine print, the implementation steps. If someone pulls out the appendix during a presentation or asks to double-check the exact wording in a contract, good chance you're seeing a blue style in action. To interact effectively, bring your data, be prepared. Their emotional driver is often security, the need to be right and avoid mistakes. They can be vulnerable to manipulation that plays on the fear of being wrong or breaking a rule.
Got it. Accuracy and process are key. And finally, the fourth style. Stability support, green, focused on people relationships, but with that cautious, introverted pace, sometimes called submission or steadiness in different versions of DISC. What are the telltale signs for green?
The green style is often the patient, supportive team player, driven by harmony, stability, and maintaining good relationships. They're typically excellent listeners, very reliable consensus builders. You can often recognize them by their calm, deliberate pace and their distinct avoidance of direct conflict. They tend to resist sudden changes, and prefer predictable, stable environments.
Sounds like they might be harder to read sometimes because they won't necessarily voice disagreement openly.
Often, yes.
Hmm.
They might go quiet or seem agreeable, even when they have reservations. So if you're working with or trying to influence a green style, the absolute key is don't rush them. Give them time to process things. And focus your communication heavily on how a decision benefits the team, ensures stability, maintains harmony, and supports relationships, their main vulnerability. That deep desire for harmony means they can sometimes be pressured into agreeing just to avoid conflict or disruption.
Okay, this whole structure, Johari for the inside, DISC for the outside, is incredibly useful. We've covered that crucial emotional weight in decisions. Remember that big 80-20 split that affects us all. We've given you the Johari window as a map for self-reflection. And we spent a good chunk of time giving you practical, actionable ways to quickly read all 4 DIC styles: red, yellow, blue, and green.
And the real point of all this, the relevance for you, is moving from just being passively, maybe confusedly, surrounded by behaviors you don't get, to actively understanding and, ideally, managing those interactions. Applying these models helps you anticipate where people are coming from. It gives you a basis for deciding whether to, say, cooperate openly, set firm boundaries, or maybe strategically share something from your facade.
Right, and this whole deep dive rests on that core idea. Understanding others really does start with understanding yourself. So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If knowing is power, and the goal is gaining more control in your interactions, what actions or reactions in your own life right now might be sitting squarely in your blind spot? What crucial thing might others already see about you that perhaps you haven't been willing to look at? Because tackling that blind spot, well, that's the real starting point for taking control.